Hey everybody, welcome to another kitchen table review, which is what I call my approach to thinking through and talking about action figures. I am relatively recently back into collecting. I had quit for a long time and came back specifically because of the NECA Universal Monsters line, and I'm doing my best to give you my thoughts on their action figures one at a time in that line. So today is going to be about a character and a movie that maybe doesn't get quite as much credit as it deserves. A very early Universal Monster movie before they were kind of considered to have a monsterverse, and that is the Phantom of the Opera. This will be the Lon Chaney adaptation versus some of the more popular and well-known Broadway musical adaptations and that sort of thing. So I'm a big fan of Lon Chaney and his work on Phantom of the Opera, and I'm a big fan of this figure. I'm going to review it in 5 categories, just like I do with all of my figure reviews, and that's going to include packaging, sculpt, articulation, accessories, and price point. So I hope that y'all will enjoy being along this journey with me. Come on and let's talk about NECA's ultimate Universal Monster, Phantom of the Opera. As always, we are going to start with packaging, and I think that this box is actually one of the best that they have in the Monster series. This is a really great action-packed, dynamic poster on front where you have the Phantom character front and center there, and also in this action pose where he's chasing after Raoul while Christine watches on. And so this is a pretty cool poster to have up front that really features the character as well as has a nice reminiscence of the original, of course. As with most of the monsters, you've got extra poses on the side to show off the sculpt and accessories, and I do feel like the shots that we have on the side fit in pretty well with the rest of the Monster series. The back looks really good as well. We've got this nice kind of foggy effect around the characters, so a black background to kind of make things pop, and then the fog to give a sort of highlight effect around the different kinds of poses. This really showcases all the different accessories. That's something that maybe not every monster box actually accomplishes, so I think that's pretty good. This gives a great set of poses, and it showcases all of these famous expressions, and particularly the one in the interior flap. So we're going to go ahead and open that up. Of course, this shot made the movie famous, where the Phantom looks directly into the face of the audience after Christine removes his mask and breaks the fourth wall. And of course we get the coat here as well, and so there's a lot of cool stuff being showcased. The window, I think, actually works really well here too. Probably can't see it super duper well because I don't have a whole room dedicated to this, and I have windows and things that reflect, but hopefully you get the idea. It adequately showcases not only the character, but actually every accessory, including the coat, the cane, the different head sculpts, hat, and different hands there. So close-up view of all the accessories. You get everything you need to know from the box, and it's a super cool looking box. So it's practical, it is exciting, it's got a lot of things going for it. I give the packaging a 5 out of 5. Okay, next we are going to talk about articulation, and surprisingly this is one of the more movable figures in the series, so I was really happy with the articulation here. The neck does not turn up and down super duper well. There's a little bit that you can do there, but this is kind of typical of these figures. Otherwise it has a really great range. So the head, of course, moves around pretty easily. You do expose some of the lines there where it makes it a little less natural, right, where you can see where the hair abruptly ends and the neck starts and everything. But he comes with this cool accessory, the cape with the collar, and if you put that on, as I'm going to show you in just a little bit, then you kind of hide some of those lines, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, so the neck and the head turn pretty well. It's just up and down that you've got to deal with. Arms and legs are very, very movable, so they give a lot of possibility for poses back and forth. Side to side goes pretty far. Of course, the elbow joints, and then you've got the hands that move all around and up and down, so the wrists work really well. One of the things that's pretty cool about this figure is how much it can move at the torso, so it gets a lot of back and forth and side to side from the torso pieces, and then also spinning side to side that way. This means that it's really easy for this figure to keep its balance, and that makes it much more posable. Again, the legs move with a whole lot more freedom than other similar figures. You've got the typical knee movements, you've got the typical foot movements, so they spin around, then they turn side to side a little, and they go up, down, back, forth. This is genuinely one of the most posable NECA figures, and I think this bit of swiveling on the torso makes a big difference, and also the fact that the arms aren't particularly bulky gives it a lot more movement. So I'm really, really happy. The joints move in all the usual places that you would expect, but the balance is particularly good on this figure because of the torso. So I give the articulation a 4.5 out of 5. Alright, let's take a look at the sculpt here. So we have several really, really good pieces, and these are some of NECA's best head pieces. I think I'm going to try and give a little more detail for some of these things as we go along. So Chaney was a master at makeup and facial expression, and that's part of what makes this movie so popular and part of what made it so impactful in popular culture. And they masterfully captured Chaney's makeup and his expressions, and so there's a lot of faces to choose from here. Only 3 head sculpts are like typical for NECA figures, and for this figure I think we appropriately have 5. So here we have this side glance, the gleeful side glance. I've already showed you the main head sculpt, and then there's several others. We get another side glance with this head sculpt, so it's a little more reserved though. So with this particular piece, he is looking worried and nervous, and the eyes are turned in the other direction than the gleeful side eye that I just showed you. And then we have the character wearing his human mask, and I will show you more about this when we look at accessories, but I think this is pretty cool, especially that translucent part. He uses a piece of tape or something like that, kind of like a bandage that's translucent to cover his mouth, and so you can see where the mouth is, but then where he put the tape, and then the cap to cover his hair. Otherwise, the rest of this looks very similar. Clearly the cheekbones are a little bit more smooth, where he's used makeup to cover up what's happening with the scarring and wrinkles on his face. So this does a really good job of capturing like how he used makeup in the movie. That's a really cool head sculpt. And then, of course, we want to be able to highlight what is maybe the most famous expression that this character uses. So Lon Chaney's Phantom really frightened audiences, and there is some evidence from early accounts that people got really upset in the theaters, maybe even fainted in their seats during this scene where he famously breaks the fourth wall using this face. So the mask that the character is wearing in a scene comes off, and he looks directly at the camera with this face, and then he raises his hand and points his finger. And for audiences who were not ready or used to characters breaking the fourth wall, this was really, really scary, right? So it's great that they included this famous expression in the figure, with the figure, and I think this sculpt is really, really good. There's also a variety of hand sculpts, so I have the basic hands that come with virtually every figure in previous shots in this video. They've got good texture there, so you can see some of the veins and wrinkles, and you've got the fingernails and everything. That's great. We also want some things to be practical, so here we have a slightly curled hand with a finger pointed outward. This is probably more for castaway gestures or dealing with accessories. And then we have this hand sculpt, which is for carrying things and holding things. He actually comes with a cane, so I'll show you more about that when we talk about accessories. It can also be used to hold the hems or edges of his cloak. And one more hand sculpt that I think is pretty cool is we have one where he is directly pointing his finger. So if you really want to recreate that famous fourth wall break scene in detail, you can have the full finger pointed hand on the right arm here if you would like. So having all of these different facial expressions, I think, is really important for Universal Monster figures, because silent films are where so much of our initial concepts of horror in the United States cinema come from, and so much of the communication in silent film comes from facial expression. So really, really good there. And I'm excited that they have all these different head sculpts. They have a pretty normal number of hand sculpts. They have 6 different hands to choose from, which I think is more than plenty for posability and functionality. Then they have a hat, a cane, and a cloak, which works really well with the rest of the functionality of the figure. And those headpieces are an important part of the sculpt. Now for the rest of the figure, this is a standard suit piece for the body. It's very similar to what's used for Dracula. It is pretty good in the sense that it's textured. You can feel the wrinkles, you can see and feel buttons. You've got a tie that a necktie that comes out and is sort of a separate piece that's affixed to the rest of the suit, so that's very good. It does show points of articulation a little bit, so I could do without this big line here, even though I do like the balance and articulation that comes from it. Same thing in the legs and the arms. But the great thing is it comes with this cloak that I'll show you when we talk about accessories, and that cloak actually covers a lot of those articulation lines. The hands are very functional for props and good for poses, as I already mentioned. And the way that they imagine the kind of sickly color of his skin for the coloration on the figure is really cool. So many of the figures that I review are in black and white, and I have only recently started thinking more about the coloration on the figures, but I think it works pretty well. This is very kind of rubbery, so you get some sense of movement, even though it's mostly going to be stiff. You've got the bald head, and you've got the texture of the hair around the piece here. So I think the sculpt is actually very impressive, and I'm going to give the sculpt here a 4 out of 5. Okay, let's talk accessories. I'm actually a huge fan of the accessories on this figure. I'm going to go ahead and put the cane in his hand so you can snap it in or slide it in. I'm going to go ahead and slide it, and then he can be holding it out almost like a weapon, or more commonly, I suspect his hand is going to turn down there. And I have this sculpt on the head for the masked version of this figure, so this is his disguise when he's trying to go out in public. There's also a little hat that comes with this, and so we can put the little hat on. The hat is kind of rubbery, so you can bend the edges a bit, and it has texture, and I think it's pretty adjustable, so you can let it rest kind of backward, you can let it rest kind of forward, you can also press it down to make it fit a little bit better, you can rest it sideways, you can put it dead on. So there's a lot of things you can do with this hat that I think are pretty cool. And then one of the best things here is I really love the cloth cloaks that come with some NECA figures, and especially if they have some kind of wire or liner. So this feels kind of like felt, and it comes out and it moves a bit, and it has wiring on the inside on the edges here to try and make it a little more posable. So that's pretty cool to be able to talk about a quality like posability when it comes to cloth materials. And a great thing about this, there are sleeves that come down to the elbows. This accessory more or less masks most of the articulation lines. So if it's, say, blowing in the wind a bit, so you can make it look like it's pulled back and it's blowing, and look at that, it's up there covering the articulation marks on the stomach. Even if you're not too worried about that, you can have it more open, flowy action pose. It's covering a lot of the articulation lines in other places, if not fully covering them, then making them less noticeable. Right, so just a simple turn with this pose covers a lot of the articulation marks that are otherwise giving away some of the unrealistic qualities of an action figure that makes, you know, a figure and a sculpt different than something live action. And we also have this great neck collar, which is solid, by the way. That's a solid piece that's connected to this material, and it masks the articulation lines on the neck. So we've got a few accessories, but really, really good accessories with the cane, with the hat, and with the cloak. The cloak is really great. So I love that they focused on so many head sculpts for some of the accessories. Again, iconic facial features come from this. The cloak with wire for posability is amazing. Hat and cane complete the ensemble. It's everything that you need to complete famous poses from the movie. I think it looks absolutely fantastic, and I love the accessories. I give them a 4.5 out of 5. Finally, let's talk about pricing. What's the bang for your buck here? I actually ended up thinking that this was one of my favorite of the Universal Monster figures. So it's not in black and white, and it's not one of kind of the core famous characters that came around after talkies, but the influence of the Phantom movie is so prolific, and the character is so well known in popular culture and beloved, even if it's different versions of this character. But the Lon Chaney version has got to be my favorite. All of the things that he did with makeup were incredible. And you know what? I think this figure really captures a lot of that. I think there's a lot of value with the different head sculpts, with the cloak, with the wire. You get all kinds of features for posability. You get the accessories that you need to recreate things from the movie. The accessories are often multi-purpose, so you can use the hat in a lot of ways. He can hold it in his hand. You can put it on, you can take it off, you can move it around to different kinds of poses, so the hat is very expressive. Same thing with the staff, same thing with the cloak. I think overall you're probably getting a lot more for your money than you do with some other figures that maybe have a lot of hand sculpts, or they have very kind of monofunctional accessories or whatever. So I'm gonna say this is actually at the price point of like 35 to 40-ish dollars, like most of these NECA Ultimates are. You're getting 5 out of 5. I think this is probably one of the best and most well-rounded figures in terms of balancing everything from what you get from posability and pragmatism, and usefulness, to just the sheer sculpt and imagery. So I really, really like this figure, and I highly recommend it, especially if you're into the NECA Universal Monsters Ultimates. So I hope you have enjoyed this review, and I'm going to be working hard on getting others available for you soon. Please go ahead and leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you would like to see more similar videos in the future. And once again, I really hope that you enjoyed, and I will look forward to reviewing more of NECA's Universal Monster Ultimates very, very soon. One last thing before you go, I try to give these figures an overall kind of grade regarding where I would rate them, and in this case I think the figure ended up coming out to something like a 92 average from all the different scores. Remember, on the box we gave him a 5, 4 on the sculpt, 4.5 on accessories, 4.5 on articulation, and 5 on the price. So this comes out to 23 out of 25, or a 92%. That would be an A-, but then I always give extra kudos if I really like the figure, which I pretty much always do. And so I would give this figure an A. This is one of my favorites, if not my favorite, monster in the NECA Ultimate series. So Phantom of the Opera, really, really good figure. Highly recommend. Thanks so much again for listening. It means a lot that you were here and took the time to go through the video. I hope that you'll be back for more videos in the future, and I would appreciate any feedback on the review of the figure, or just conversation about enjoying action figures or Universal Monsters. One of the great things about these figures is that it just perpetuates love and fandom for film and classic film, and I would love to talk with anyone about that who shares similar interests. So thank you again for being here. And if you get this figure or other figures in the Universal Monster line, please feel free to leave comments and let me know, or point me toward your videos, and I would love to hear what you have to say as well. Thanks again.